I used to always sound check with Silverchair riffs, and the crowd would be
that's
like,
rad.
"Yeah!" And then suddenly that fell off. I'm like, "Don't you kids know your history? I'm playing Silverchair."
That's awesome. Thank you all for being here. This is awesome. Our podcast is all about you guys, your journey in music, and how you guys form Knives, and what you got going on today.
Awesome. Are we starting now, or
Yeah, I just roll right into it.
Just roll right in.
Cool.
Well, how about we all just go through and tell me where you're born and raised?
Okay. Well, I'm Ben, singer, guitar player, guy in the band, and I was born and raised in Tampa, Florida. Lived in Murfreesboro, Tennessee for a few years in college, and moved out to LA about 18 years ago.
Awesome. How did you get into music?
How to get into music? I got, gosh, when I was like 17, I got a bass. When I was 18, I got a guitar, and then just slowly over time got better at them at a very slow rate.
Okay. What about you, Brian? Where were you born and raised?
I'm from Long Island, New York. I was born in New York City, raised in Long Island. I've lived in Chicago, and then I moved back to New York, and I'm in LA. Been here for, wow, it's been 7 years now.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
How did you get into music?
I mean, music has just been around my whole life, and I really started taking it seriously when I was in probably like junior high school. I started trying to play bass. I wasn't very good at it, but still not very good at it.
I don't know.
Still a work in progress, right?
That's awesome. And what about you, Warren? How'd you get into music?
Well, I'm from
Where were you born and
Washington.
raised?
Yeah, I was born in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
I moved to Boston to go to college for 4 years. I
Did you
moved
go to
to
Berkeley?
Yeah, I went to Berkeley.
Okay, wow.
One of the very few people who actually graduated from Berkeley. And then moved to New York City for 2 years after that, and then moved to Los Angeles, and was in Los Angeles for about 18 years, and now I'm currently in London.
Oh wow. Okay, that's awesome.
Well,
So,
Warren's our wild card. It's like, oh, we got a Berkeley trained musician in our band. Okay, cool.
What'd you go to Berkeley for?
Drum set performance and music synthesis. I got two degrees in 9 semesters.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah, so and school was awesome because it was just like, I was either going to class to like play drums all day or going to class to like make computers make weird noises, and drum and bass had really just started, showing itself in the States around that time. So I like started DJing and then did that, a whole bunch, and then combined the two. So it was really like, but my career with being a roadie, like my position didn't even really exist when I went to school. Playback wasn't really a thing. Like, some people were like syncing DA88s, and, there was a little bit of like Pro Tools kind of stuff going on, but like that position like didn't really actually exist when I started doing, when I graduated from school. And then when I got out to LA, it was like, hey, this position kind of exists. And then I was able to just use all of this stuff that I was readily doing, on my own in this career that, at one point, like, only like the biggest, arena stadium acts could afford or were really into, and now everybody's got playback. Everybody's got their little able.
Oh man, there's like little baby bands now that got
exactly.
using playback. They show up with their ears and everything. Yeah.
So, I got into music because I come from a very musical family. Got musical parents. Mom was a musical theater teacher. Pops was a drummer. So it's just like, I've been, my little sister plays 9 instruments, including the bagpipes. My older brother plays upright bass. I come from a very musical family, so I don't really know how to do anything else.
Wow.
So moving to LA was a natural step, and it just kind of went from there. And then I met these two guys while we were all doing our thing.
Right on. Oh, well, can you just explain what playback is, just so everybody understands?
So basically, if you got your band members on stage, in order to fill out the sound with more, you only have a band with 3, 4, 5, 6, Slipknot's case 9, but they don't use playback. Members, in order to fill out the sound and really like, put in a whole bunch of stuff so you don't have to hire a choir or a string section or multi-percussionist or something like that. You have a playback engineer, and it's essentially like being a DJ, but you're a DJ with a redundant computer system with all of the stuff that's not on stage. Vocal loops, percussion loops, you know, extra guitars, you know, a lot of drum samples, and just things that aren't covered by the musicians who are on stage or in the band.
Okay.
Well, I feel like one of the things to clear up for anybody listening that's never heard of us, not only are we an awesome rock band, but we are all roadies for amazing rock bands too.
Yeah, I wanted to get
So
into
that's
that.
kind of our background. Yeah.
Okay, so because Ben, you and Brian met as roadies, right? Or back?
Yeah, we met-
Techs? Okay.
So-
Yeah, we met in 2005.
Yeah, 4 or 5, 2005, I think.
We were
back
both
when-
on a Warped Tour back when you
Oh,
were
wow.
doing. Yeah. We were. I think that's initially where we met. And
No,
the
it
first
was
time
actually,
we
we actually met to make it boring and specific on the Epitaph Records tour.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, the
Yeah,
Epitaph
Oh
Records tour.
wow. Who
I
were
can't
you guys
remember. That was
working
like
for?
16 years ago. I was with Motion City Soundtrack at the time.
Oh,
And I was working
rad.
for a band called The Matches.
Oh, I didn't remember the matches.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're awesome.
Okay, so well, that's interesting. Well, Ben,
So-
how about you tell me how you got into that whole career path? Then I want to hear from Brian.
Oh
as
yeah.
well.
Well, so I got into roadieing. So I went to school, Middle Tennessee State University. Like I knew I wanted to do something in music, and I found out about their recording industry major out there. Basically, learn recording, music business, but at an actual 4-year college. So my parents were happy. Moved out to LA to work at recording studios in 2003. I was working at a Henson recording studio for a few months, and I'd met a band there called Stereogram. They were doing their debut record for Capitol, and they were like, "Oh, once we're done, like we need a guitar tech and a tour manager." And I was really interested in the. I kind of saw like the studio stuff maybe going downhill over the next few years, and touring always intrigued me. So I was like, I can guitar tech and tour manage. Didn't even realize that I was lying. I was just like, I know what I'm doing. And then it was kind of got into it and learned as I went. And so, yeah, I worked for that band for about a year. And then just kind of from there, I was like, I'll do this for a year. Let somebody pay me to see the world. And then I'll go get a real job. And then just kind of
Okay.
kept being bigger and bigger bands.
Wow. So you just kind of worked your way up from one band to the next band, and it was all
Yeah.
just through what, networking and
Yeah,
meeting
well, I got
people?
really lucky that so the Matches were the second band I worked for, and I actually sought them out because I just thought they were awesome. Convinced them to hire me, but they were a band's band, so they got a lot of great tours, and that's how I kind of built my network of meeting other production managers, other roadies, other guitar techs, and that kind of then was what helped me build up that network to get to then A-level bands.
Sure. And then you guys met with Linkin Park.
So
You and
yeah,
Brian.
no, so me and Warren met. Now we're fat. So me and Brian met in 2004 or 5.
Oh yeah, Warped Tour.
And then fast forward to 2000. Oh gosh, I can't remember when I first met Warren, but Warren had been working with Linkin Park for a while, and I was doing. Some of my friends were engineers, so I was just kind of going in and just doing like setting up guitars in the studio every once in a while. And then Warren hit me up and was like, we kind of knew each other, but he's like, "Yo, we need a guitar tech for Linkin Park. You interested?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am." And so
Very
that's how that started. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, what about you? I want to hear Warren out how you got involved with them as well. But Brian, so how did you get into teching for Motion City Soundtrack or?
Well, initially it was I had been in bands touring as a musician. I was a singer in a band, and then I was a bass player, a singer in another band, and that ran until about from when I graduated high school till like 2003 ish. Is kind of when I stopped playing music, like touring or whatever, or I thought I was going to stop, and I ended up touring with Motion City Soundtrack as a tech. So from 2004 to 2008, 2004 to 2006, I was with them pretty much the same as Ben, where I like came on as a guitar tech, but then ended up tour managing at one point, and then like production manager. And then I was like, dude, at one point I was like running their monitors. I was like, I don't know how to do any of this. What is going on? But like not realizing that I was actually learning a lot. Like I just, like you throw yourself in the fire, and then you just kind of learn all this stuff as you're going if you don't really know it. And I was always lucky to be around, we toured with Blink-182, and we toured with bigger bands where I could go to their techs who had been around for a while and be like, "Hey, I don't know how to do this. Like, show me how to put pickups in a guitar," or whatever. Like I kind of not that fake it till you make it thing, but I really wanted to make something of it because being in a band up until that point was fun, and I just lost tons of money, and I was finally getting paid, and I was like, well, maybe I can do this and do a band on the side, you know?
Sure.
But then, so from there, you know, I ended up getting other, you know, bigger, same thing, like you get bigger and bigger jobs. Cause like if you're taking it seriously and you're doing your job, whatever, you're going to end up getting, you know, and you start networking with people and you start getting bigger jobs. And right after Motion City, I left for a minute. I got called by Fall Out Boy, and that was in 2006.
Wow.
And pretty much I've been with them since then.
And they were like massive at that point.
They had just broken pretty big right then. So 2006, early 2007 was like some of my first tours with them. And, you know, basically since then I've done that and, you know, worked for a few other bands when they're off, but that's been my main thing since then.
That's amazing. And Warren, so how did you get involved in you were saying you did, backline? I can't remember.
I actually started out as a local stagehand. Like when I was 15, I started mowing the lawn at the concert pavilion just outside Washington, D.C. It used to be called Nissan Pavilion. It's now called Jiffy Lube Live. I will never refer to it as that.
Of course. That's like in San Diego. The big one was, I'm from there, and it was like Coors Amphitheater was what I remembered.
Oh, yeah, I remember the Coors Amphitheater.
I think it's like Sleep Train, or I don't even know if
it's Sleep Train Pavilions. Yeah.
Something else now, but I was still referred to it as Coors.
Yeah. Oh, cool. You changed to a mattress company from a beer company?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that out loud.
Right.
Sleep Train.
Yeah, so I started mowing the lawn there when I was 15. And so by the time I was like 16, 17, I started working on the stage. And then from there, I started, you know, by the time I was 19, 20, I started being a rigger. And then, you know, we had like the biggest tours in, you know, the country come through there on a daily, weekly basis. So I was meeting all of these touring people, and, you know, some of them, you know, took a liking to me or whatever. And I met this one dude who's now, you know, been with Maroon 5 forever. And he and I just kind of hit it off. And I was like, yo, man, I'm moving to Los Angeles next summer. He was like, here's my phone number. Hit me up. I was like, okay. So I get to Los Angeles and I hit him up, and he's like, man, I gave my number out to like all these people, and you're the only person who's hit me up. I was like, well, I'm here. I'm looking for work. Like, let me know. Then Ashley Simpson had her Saturday Night Live debacle.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And literally the next day, my phone rang to be her playback engineer.
Really?
Yeah. So
they're like, this guy's fired.
Yeah, well, no, it was the drummer. They didn't have a playback guy. They entrusted the drummer to do it. And instead of moving to the next session in between songs, the drummer went and hung out, or, you know, was doing his thing or whatever, and didn't move on to the next song.
Oh, wow.
So so that my phone rang literally the next day. And, you know, I you know, from there, I just climbed the ladder working with a whole bunch of pop acts, and then the pop acts turned into rock acts. And then, you know, I started kind of doing backline too, as, you know, a lot of people will throw in keyboards or DJ stuff with the playback world just to try to make it economically feasible or whatever. So it was actually Britney Spears's musical director who got me the gig with Linkin Park.
Wow.
So Delcor referred me, and then I just kind of started working with them, hit it off with Joe, and then I went from being just the DJ tech to, you know, being this, you know, one of the in-studio guys. I was like doing stuff at all of their house studios, and then, you know, then I ended up playing in the band for covering for Joe when he had to step away for some stuff. Ben filled in for some shows, and he and I had like a little rivalry going on with, you know, who was playing the most amount of shows or whatever.
Oh.
Well, that kind of became the main impetus for the beginning of our band KNIFES, where I was working for Linkin Park, and it's honestly it was about the third show in where we were in St. Petersburg, Russia, and the production manager came up to me, and I was guitar tagging for Brad Delson, the lead guitar player, and he was like, Brad hurt his back. He's not sure if he can make it to the show. Are you prepared? Can you play the show? And I was like, oh gosh, I didn't know this was going to be a thing. Like maybe. So then I just started like learning all this stuff I didn't know. I kind of already knew the set. Fortunately, that day, Brad did show up and played the show. It maybe would have been a train wreck, but that's when I was like, oh, okay, I got to learn these. This is the third show I've ever done with this band. I got to learn these songs. So I learned the whole set, and then a few months later, we flew to Brazil, and that's when the production manager, we landed, and he's like, Brad's sick. He's not coming to Brazil. You're playing the shows. No questions asked. You're playing lead guitar for Linkin Park these shows.
Oh,
Also, Steven Tyler's got a sore throat for Aerosmith. Go sing for them also. It's wild. So I played those two shows, and everything went well. And I'd never been a songwriter before, but I was like, I don't know, I can play these Linkin Park songs. Maybe I can write some songs. So I had a few riffs. Me and Warren started jamming, and I think the first time I knew we were onto something, we had kind of recorded a little bit of a demo at home, and then Warren's like, yo, I got that hook stuck in my head. And I was like, what? Like, I wrote a song and it's stuck in your head? Like, all right, cool. So we kind of gone on a few months, actually a few years, like in its early stages, where we didn't have a bass player. I was kind of writing the bass parts, but we weren't really playing any shows. And then after Chester's passing, me and Warren both started working for Fall Out Boy. Like I said, I'd known Diaz for years. So it was just like, yo, Diaz, you're a bass player now. Like, didn't give him a choice.
Yeah, I got thrown into it. I mean, I wanted to do it too, because like being out here and like always being around bands, and I always have ideas and things I want to do. And it just happened to be, it's hard to do when you're touring so much, because you're on different schedules. If we were all like working with different bands or whatever, we might be able to get together once a month or whatever. But if we're on tour together, our off time is always going to be the same. And if we all live in the same place, then we could just do the band. So we were like, all right, I'll do it. I'm in. I want to play music. I want to do something. And he sent me the songs, and I was like, all right, I can do this. This is something, this is something I'm into.
That's awesome.
Sure.
So you guys both met. So Ben, you ended up working with Fall Out Boy, and Brian, you were already doing.
Yeah, I was already there.
Okay.
Yeah. Fall Out Boy's kind of been my main gig for the last 3 years, but all of us, we have our main gigs, and then kind of when fill in the gaps, it's like, oh, we have the band's not doing anything for 7 months. Cool. I'm gonna go, work for this band now for a while.
Okay. I'm curious. Do you have to know, like you said, you had to fill in right on guitar for Linkin Park.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to know all the songs and like the set personally?
So that's not a normal thing for our job, but like for Warren kind of like he knew the whole. Well, one, he's just a fantastic drummer, so he can just hear the songs and play them. But Warren had the situation too where he filled in on drums for Linkin Park, and you can talk more about your preparing for that.
The tour where Chester broke his ankle, Rob, that was maybe 3 or 4 shows in, and I think we got done with the first show, and Rob hurt his shoulder, and he was like, yo, I don't think I'm going to be able to finish this leg of the tour. I know you play drums, learn the set, you'll play the second half of tomorrow's show, and then you'll finish the rest of the leg. So I was like, all right. So we're in Atlanta, and me and the playback guy go into a rehearsal studio, and I practice all day or whatever. And then I get to the venue, I do sound check, everything. I'm super stoked. I'm like, sweet. This is it. And then Chester breaks his ankle prior to the show, and then we canceled the whole tour. So, I did play on my birthday. My birthday was the last show ever. And
really?
They called me up for the last part of the last song. So that was pretty intense.
That's pretty special. Wow, that is cool. That is really cool. So, but you're saying, even Brian, you're saying you have to, like, you should know all the songs.
Well,
like that?
yeah, I mean, I now I kind of make a habit of it, because in 2014, I worked for Pete, the bass player for Fall Out Boy, and his lady was about to have a baby, and he had to be there for that. So he was like, all right,
kind of a big deal.
He's like, the projected, date is these dates. So we'll probably need you to play like 3 shows. He's like, I'll come back. I'm going to do Red Rocks, but the other shows after that, I need you to cover those. And I learned the whole set. Like I got like a live recording, you know, that from earlier that tour. And they pretty much they don't change their set a whole lot, you know, little inside information there. But the set generally stays the same, maybe a couple songs swap out. So I was able to learn the whole set from that. And it was kind of like that thing. I'm like, man, if you actually do this and I have to do this set, you need to do this in the exact order I learned it. It can't be any different, because I'm going to be like, I mean, super concentration mode on that. But yeah, I ended up just like every day off, I'd sit in my hotel room for a couple hours, just go through the set, make sure I, you know, had the muscle memory. And, you know, the day came and she didn't give birth, and then the next day, and then the next day, and then the tour ended, and I never got to play.
Oh, but you knew the songs.
Yeah, I knew the songs. They threw me a little money for getting prepared, but it would have been cool to have done it. I mean, there have been times when I've had to fill in for bands. Even with Motion City Soundtrack, there was a show that I did with them, and we played a show in Sacramento where two of the guys had to leave to go to a wedding. So we had a fill-in drummer, and I filled in on bass. But you know, it's always good to just know the songs, because you never know when you're gonna have to step in for even just a sound check. You know, I've done that. I filled in for Duff McKagan of Guns N' Roses at a sound check in Germany. And it was very last minute, and I actually didn't really know that many songs. And they were like, all right, in about 2 hours, the band will be here, so you need to learn these 6 songs. I'm like, 6 songs in 2 hours? Holy shit! I gotta get this going right now. But yeah,
you got the nod of approval from Slash, and that made it all worth it.
I did.
Yeah, that's cool. That is huge. That is huge.
On bigger tours, when you got between bands, when you do the line check, lots of times now the front of house person does it on headphones, but that used to be like my favorite part, where it's like coming out there and just play a riff. I used to always, especially in smaller clubs, I used to always sound check with Silverchair riffs, and the crowd would be like,
rad.
yeah. And then suddenly that fell off. I'm like, don't you kids know your history? I'm playing Silverchair.
That's awesome. Yeah, I always thought that was funny when the tech would come out and strum some chords or play a little riff, and people are going nuts. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, you guys realize that that's not actually, you know,
they kind of don't know.
band's
They kind of don't
guitar
know
player.
that like the guy's actually doing work. Like, he's checking to make sure the sounds work. He's not coming out to, like, you know, for his own ego,
Screw
even though
around,
there's a
yeah.
little bit of ego in it. But yeah, it's like he's actually just doing his job right now.
That's awesome. So once you guys start, you know, Warren and Ben, you guys start playing together, and you send these riffs over to Brian. What year was this? Like, when was the band?
So it was
kind of
probably
start?
2017, late 2017.
2017.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I actually was going through some of my, like, I'm just trying to organize my computer a little bit. This is a ton of like random like audio clips and things, and some of it was from like 2017. I remember seeing, I was like, "Ooh, this is really old KNIFES demos, like stuff that's like maybe, you know, became different versions of the songs that we eventually committed to, you know, the EPs and releases and stuff." But yeah, it was pretty interesting going through that. I was like, wow, some of these songs have been kicking around for a minute.
And were you guys able to play some shows prior to, or were you all pretty busy and just kind of had this as
starting around early 2018, we were kind of able to start like doing small shows at like local bars and whatnot. But just because of work schedules and whatnot, we never got like super consistent with playing shows. We were also able to like pull a few favors. So it's like, you know, working for bands like that band, The Matches, that I used to work for. They were doing a show at the Troubadour, and I was like, yo, can we open the show? And they were like, better yet, what if you're just the only other band on the show? And it's like, yeah, so that was cool, playing
amazing.
Like, you know, sold out show at the Troubadour. Joe from Fall Out Boy has a side project called The Damned Things. They were playing at the Whiskey, I guess it was 2019. So it was like, yo, yeah. I was like, you know, just pulled that like, yo, I'll be teching for you at the show, but also like, can we play? And it was like, yeah, you guys can play. So we get to open that show. So trying to take advantage of some of those relationships too.
That's amazing. And you guys put an EP out prior to the most recent one?
Yeah, so the most recent one came out last Friday, and October 2nd was our first 5-song EP.
Okay.
Called Proof of Concept.
Okay, so Proof of Concept came out October 2020, and then you just released it on Friday?
Yeah, October 2020, correct. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. I'm curious, you guys were like the most directly affected by this whole virus when it comes to the music industry, I feel like. I mean, at least Fall Out Boy's making money still off their records and everything else. And you guys are pretty much like the the rugs ripped out from right under you. I mean, tell me about that. That must have been so like,
Yeah, we were getting
devastating.
we were pretty close to having, well, so I mean that last summer we were supposed to be on tour. Fall Out Boy was doing a tour with Green Day and Weezer, so we would have gone to Europe.
What was it called?
No, Hella Mega Tour.
Oh yeah, Pop Disaster Tour was the great.
That was years ago. I went to that one too. Jimmy Eat World.
Yeah, that was a great tour.
Yeah.
It was like 2003 or something.
Yeah, I went to that one too in San Diego. Coors Amphitheater, not the.
Saw it in Tampa.
Okay, so yeah, the one that Interrupters, Weezer, that was the tour you guys were supposed to be on.
Yeah, and you know, like obviously the beginning of it is the same story for everybody. It's like, oh, okay, the country's going to close down for 2 weeks, and you know, we were about 5 or 6 weeks away from leaving on tour, and I just kind of saw the writing on the wall. I was like, this isn't going to happen, and you know. For a lot of people, every roadie's story is different, but for some people it's financially difficult. But I will say, like, I think what the government did with like pandemic unemployment insurance and all that stuff, I think that really helped a lot of people. Plus Live Nation had some stuff. I think, Warren, you were on tour at the time, right?
Yeah, we were. Slipknot did 3 months at the beginning of 2020, and we were supposed to go home. We shipped everything to Asia. We were like supposed to have a week off, and I was the complete you know, glasses half full guy. I was like, there's no way we're not going to Japan. There's way too much money on the table. I was like, there's no way we're not going to Japan. I came to London. I like got my Japan visa. I like had to, you know, FedEx my passport all over the place. And I get back to LA, and, you know, within 3 days of getting back to LA, they were like, nope, nothing's happening. We canceled the Knot Fest at Sea, which was supposed to be their first like boat cruise thing. Everybody was super bummed about that, and you know, so yeah, I mean, we went from being in the thick of things and being like, nah, this isn't gonna last very long, to being like, what the hell do we do now?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I didn't realize that you were working with Slipknot at that time too. That's quite the band to be doing playback for, I would imagine.
They don't have playback.
They don't. Okay.
No. With Slipknot, I worked for Sid, the DJ, and Craig, the sampler guy.
Oh, okay.
And you know, I'm like chopping their samples and setting up their rigs during the day. But for the show, Sid has an animatronic mask. And
really?
Yeah, and I'm controlling Sid's animatronic mask during the show. So when he's scratching, his eyes move, and when there's certain like parts where he will mouth what Corey's saying or lyrics or stuff like that, or he'll like run down and like do kind of like scary stuff. So I'm sitting there controlling his
scary stuff.
Yeah. Dude, the first time I saw the mask, it's super creepy. I was like, dude, they got those conveyor belt things, so he's like not jumping off, you know, crazy stuff anymore, and it looks creepy now. Like, it's not just scary, it's like, wow, this is kind of nuts. But yeah, for the whole show, I'm sitting there making Sid's mask move.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. That's amazing. Oh, wow. Okay, so that tour obviously gets canceled. Then you live full-time in London?
I do now. I just recently moved here like maybe 4 months ago.
That's amazing. That's really cool. So obviously you guys had some downtime to continue writing and working on Knives? Was that what kind of happened?
Kind of. I like my whole entire, I was like, okay, we have all this downtime. Like, I'm gonna start, like, I'll just write. And I found like my brain wasn't working. And I talked to a lot of other people.
There's
like,
a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Even some like established big time artists that I know. Like, I was chatting with one of them, and he's like, same way. And I mean, I write a little more about like, here, I come up with a guitar riff, and then I bring it to Warren and Brian, and we jam it out, and we kind of get, you know, figure out the song. And then I kind of figure out lyrics and melody once we have that going on. And I was just like, I don't know, I just can't even do anything that like excites me. But I felt validated when people from other like big bands that I respect were like, dude, same exact thing. And I was like, okay, it's not me. You know, I think some form of, COVID didn't make me feel anxious overtly, but I think there's just, you know, some shit your head's dealing with, and it's sort of manifested in that way.
It can go through my like Ableton and Pro Tools song fragments, and I have just like hundreds of like, oh, this is like a 10-second blip that makes no sense. And like, I'd have an idea. I'm like, all right, I'm going to just get this down real quick. And then I go back to it. I'm like, I don't even remember what this is about. Like, I can't finish this because I don't know what this was. But I think a lot of people had that same issue where they were trying to get things done, and you just had either you had a well of ideas and you were just going through the flow of it, or you just couldn't record anything or figure anything out, you know?
But I kind of used it though. So we had previously with what became our first EP, Warren and I had sort of snuck into the studio of a band we worked for and recorded drums on the DL. Like, I don't think the band knows still. And it's like, but you know, they had the nice expensive studio, drum set up and mic'd well. We're friends with the engineers, and we're like, hey, let us know a day when the band's not going to be there, and just hit record for us. And then I'd finished with another friend, did all the guitars and vocals. Diaz did the bass. And so that became, it originally was very slow going, trying to put that first EP out. This is pre-COVID, just because everybody's busy and it's hard to prioritize things in certain ways, get everybody on the same page, not even just talking about the band, like other people we were working with. But once COVID kind of hit, we were able to be like, all right, let's get this mixed. Let's get the artwork. Let's put this out. Let's do this. So that became good for that kind of focus and getting that going on. It wasn't necessarily a creative focus, but getting the business side of that stuff done. And then sort of a similar thing, even before the first EP came out, we also snuck in on the DL at a studio, and another batch of songs we had written and recorded drums for that. So I mean, to me, drums are the most important part to get a really nice studio sound from, and then you can build from there.
Right.
And then we recorded the EP that just came out. The rest of that basically recorded at home. I did vocals and guitar at my house. Diaz did bass at his house, and then got our buddy to mix that one also.
Oh, wow. So you were just sharing files back and forth, like virtually, so to speak?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, at that point, I was okay with Diaz coming over. Once we were middle of summer, I'm like, hey,
yeah. I mean,
whatever.
we did. I did the bass.
Like, I'm gonna put this instrument cable outside the window. You stand outside. I'll turn it up loud enough so you can hear.
No, I literally, some of it recorded it at like my kitchen table, just like set up, you know. And as far as bass goes, that's the one where I'm like, I'm most okay with it, just like direct into the thing and, you know, post-processing or whatever. And I'm like taught myself basically how to edit my bass and how to do Pro Tools. Like, that's one thing that I will say this last year has been good for, is like, all right, I am going to finally learn how these like recording software works or video software, whatever it is. Like, just teach myself, just sit there. I had nothing but time. So I would sit there and like, you know, so we finished recording that. And then Ben was like, all right, you know, we need some lyric videos for our songs. And I'm like, I'll give it a try. I have the programs to make it happen. And I sat there and learned how to program animations and shit for that stuff. So, I mean, again, some people had it really, like Ben said, had it really difficult financially or whatever. You know, we got a little bit lucky. We got a little money from the bands that we worked for. And, you know, I just used that time to just figure out other things, you know, whether it was recording the EP or recording those songs for the second EP or making videos or whatever, you know.
Were you guys able to like write some of this together, like when you were on tour with Fall Out Boy, for example, or no, it was just business? And
it was always kind of the intention, but then it's hard to like get in that mind space. Although I will say, like, I do usually take a guitar with me on tour, and it's like, might have a day off in a hotel room, and it's like I'm just strumming. I'm like, there definitely are a few songs where I just had a guitar in the room and I was like, ooh, that's a cool riff, and that would become the beginning of a song. But it is rare that like anytime on tour that we're all just kind of like, all right, let's get together in a room and work on stuff.
Yeah,
I need the energy of Warren just hitting some drums and us.
I always plan on doing stuff like that. I think this coming tour, I'm planning on bringing like a little keyboard, you know, with some drum pads and whatever. Now that I have a better understanding of how to record stuff, I can actually do that in my time. Like, if I have a good idea or something, I'll just like throw together something really quick. But also there's that thing on like a day off on tour where I'm just like, I don't want to do that. Like,
right.
I want to do something else. I want to go walk around town or whatever, you know.
Sure. Did they re-announce that tour?
Yeah, so the Hella Mega Tour is basically starting up at the end of July. So we've got that going on. Me and Brian do.
Cool. And what about you, Warren? Do you have anything coming up as far as like tours re-announced?
Slipknot stuff starts in like a couple of months or something like that. I'm gonna go back to DC and do a little bit of like local stagehand work or whatever. I got some family stuff going on. But yeah, I mean, the world is reopening and everybody's fallen back into their house gigs, if you will, to go and try to start doing what we planned on doing over a year ago. Like, Slipknot will be playing makeup dates for the next 2 years.
Right. Oh yeah, a lot of bands will. Yeah. There's so much. It's funny because like, you can go to something like Wikipedia and see like a band's tour dates. Like they'll say like the whatever tour, and you never like for Fall Out Boy at least. There's never ever anything that ever says canceled. And for the first time ever, it was just like these listed dates and they were all canceled. I was like, God damn. I'm like, we're going to have to make up all of this stuff in the next, like we have Europe that's going to be in 2022. Australia needs to be made up. All this stuff needs to be made up. We're going to be doing that forever.
I was going to say, you guys went from like dead stop to not being able to do your job to now it's probably like, oh man, like we have so much work ahead of us.
Well, I keep jokingly saying that 2022 is going to be the great roadie shortage because every band is touring. I mean, starting in 2021, but 2022, like a lot of road crew people found new jobs. They're like, oh, I want to see my family. Like I got this new job. I'm going to stay home and do this. But like, there's not going to be enough of us to go around. So like our rates are going to skyrocket.
Right.
There you go.
Right now, like I think right now I'm not going to be extremely busy only because the only thing you can really do right now is be in the United States. Like we can't go, we can't do Canada. We can maybe do like something in Mexico or something. We can't go to Europe yet. We definitely can't go to Asia. Definitely can't go to Australia. So.
Oh, really? Australia's not letting people in.
Australia's not letting anybody in until 2020.
No. Yeah, they're not. Wow. They're not letting any bands. I was supposed to go with. I work for Bush as well.
Okay.
And we were supposed to go to Australia this year.
Yeah.
Would have been the first, and it got pretty last minute. It was canned because just to do it would have been massive undertaking. They needed like a 2-week quarantine here at home and then 2 weeks there. So a full month of your life would have been in a really strict quarantine test. It was all like, it was crazy. The guidelines I had were crazy. And I think in the end wasn't worth it.
Okay.
So they're just going to hold off on that. But yeah, I mean, we have this US tour coming up, but then after that, we kind of have to wait to really tour full time all year. You have to travel the world. So you can't just be going, you can't just be doing loops around the United States. Like you can only do a market so many times,
Sure.
You can headline, you can open for another band. And then, after that, it's like maybe some festivals, but not.
I was going to say the bands you guys work for are only headliners. I mean, you're not going to see Fall Out Boy like opening up really for many bands.
This tour will be the first in 12. How many years have I worked for them? 15 years. This will be besides the tour we did with Blink 182 would be the only time they didn't headline because we're not playing last. We're like,
Green Day's headlining over Fall Out
Boy. Green Day closes the show. So this is the first time I'll be done at like 8:00. Truck's packed. I'm out. I'll go watch Green Day or I'll, go somewhere in town or whatever, it's going to be very different. It's going to be kind of nice. So like not, you have that kind of pressure, not for me so much, but for them. And then you got to load in the day before and blah, blah, blah. So for us, it'll be an easier tour.
That's
for sure.
That's nice. Yeah. Wow. I didn't realize that everyone else is locked down because I've interviewed people. Actually, I interviewed Gavin Rosdale. I was supposed to interview him when you guys were in Australia, but
he lives out here. He lives in LA.
Yeah. So I ended up interviewing him here. But I didn't realize that they were shutting down everything like that and not letting people go into other countries. I know Canada is really strict. Like even coming back, if you leave there and come back, you have to be in like some government issued hotel quarantine, and then you go home and they'll send people to your door and like make sure you're there. It's like pretty wild.
I think you
call
can
me every day. They called me every day for 10 days when I got back here from Italy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Just checking to make sure you're there.
Yep.
We could go to, we're allowed to go to like Iceland and stuff. But like as far as working, because when you're going there with a tour, you're technically you're working. So like they're not going to issue you a work visa to go there now. They're going to be like, no, you can come as a tourist maybe, but not to. You're not bringing a whole tour with like bands and crew and gear and all this stuff. It's just not there yet. So it'll come back, and you know that's when things will get really busy and will be like nonstop. You know, it's funny because I was just like looking at something that I had been. It was like 2 years ago. Yeah, it had to be 2019, where I was like, oh, my 4th time in England this year, and I was like, whoa, I went to Europe 4 times in 1 year. I haven't been there since. Like, it's just been in LA. This is crazy.
Yeah.
This is the longest I've been in one city since I was like a kid.
Do you ever, like, looking back as a kid, could you ever imagine being able to like tour the world like you have? Like, I mean, that must be so incredible to be able to see the world like that.
I mean, the first band that I knew that ever played outside of the United States, I was like blown away because they were like dudes my age, and I was like 18 at the time or like 17. I was like, holy shit, they toured in Europe. And they're people who I'm still friends with, and we actually talked about it recently, and they were like, oh, don't be too envious, that tour sucked. It's like we got robbed in Italy. I lost all my my luggage, or I lost my passport in England, like all this stuff that happened to them, and I'm like, yeah, it sounds like it sucks. But but I was so like, I was motivated by that. I was like, you know what? If these guys can do it, I can do it. I want to eventually do it one day. And, here we are.
The first time I ever flew to do a European tour, like I'm on the airplane, and then we're like flying into Heathrow, like approaching, and I'm looking around, I'm like, these are the oldest buildings I've ever seen. Like, just kind of like everything's. I'm sure this buildings could have been built 30 years ago, but I'm just like, this country's old. This is amazing.
I know. America's so like not old. And just like you go somewhere, they're like, look at this building. It's over 50 years old. This is part of our local history. And you're like, this is just like, that's the McDonald's. What are you talking about?
That's the McDonald's. That's amazing. And then, so let's go back talking about your band real quick. So you released the record on Friday. Stuff is open in LA now, right? I mean, it just kind of yesterday, the day before.
Yeah, like 2 days ago. It's weird. It's you still can't quite tell yet, but also you can tell because it's just like, hey, you can just go to a bar now. And
I walked into a bar with no mask, just sat at the counter and started talking to people. Whoa. And it was like, I looked around, I was like, well, we're just back to this now. Like, it's just a regular ass day.
Yeah, my mom and sister went to a baseball game the other day with no masks on either. They were like, my sister was like, I feel like I'm going to let the dog out. Like, it's just like, on.
Yeah, like you're doing something wrong, like being somewhere without a mask on.
Yeah, it definitely felt weird for like a day. And now it's just like, whatever, like I carry a mask in my pocket if I need to go somewhere. Like, I'm going to be agreeable about it. I'm like, I won't wear like we're allowed to walk around without it. Whatever. If I go to the door of a place and it says, put a mask on, and it's like, yeah, we'd prefer if you did, I'll put it on. I don't care. Like, I don't see what the big deal is. Like, it's not the biggest deal in the world. So
I've carried a bandana in my back pocket since I was like 13, and I'm so thankful that my fashion accessory is now so globally accepted.
Now you can wear
Finally.
it. Exactly.
I kind of have this like catch-22 where it's like, because now the signs in places like the coffee shop I go to, it's like, if unvaccinated customers, please wear a mask. But then like I kind of see everybody else wearing a mask, so I'm like, oh, I don't know, I'll just put a mask on just so. But then I'm like, wait, do they think I'm not vaxxed? And I'm like, I get torn back and forth. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna tear it.
Yeah, it's like, I guess it's really, honesty. Like
yeah.
To me, it's just a gray area right now. I'm like, in another week, everybody will kind of stop wearing the mask in a polite way, I guess. The vax. I don't know.
I feel like I saw it was like on AV Club or something. There was a headline. It was about some theater that reopened, and they were like, this theater now allows vaccinated, unmasked patrons and total liars to be like. I was like, that is amazing.
That's so amazing. Do you think you guys will be able to get out and play this record to anyone? Well, you're in London. That's going to be I was
Well,
gonna say before the
I'm
tour.
very tri-coastal.
Yeah.
We all spend thousands of hours a year on an airplane. So, you know,
Okay.
so long as the borders open and, you know, planes are still flying, you know, we can all get anywhere in a matter of hours.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be back in the States in 2 weeks. So
Yeah,
okay.
if we book any big shows, then like, you know, I'm sure Warren will like fly right in. But yeah, he has right of first refusal to every show. But I don't really want to play any shows without him. But if we book something, it's like, all right, we'll find somebody maybe to play drums. But I only want to do it with Warren.
Sure. Do you have any plans to play anything before? I mean, before the Green Day Fall Out Boy tour kicks
If
off?
we could put something together, yeah, but it hadn't even really been on my radar because I kind of didn't realize
we didn't know
oh,
it was
yeah.
going to be like open to be able to play.
Yeah, it's
It
kind
was
of like,
so-
okay, on Monday you can stop wearing masks. Also, yell into a microphone and scream into people's faces at a bar. Like, oh shit, I forgot we could do that too.
Right.
I think we'll be able to do something hopefully pretty soon. I mean, again, like it kind of takes not by surprise, but sort of like, oh shit, like everything really is wide open. We can actually go play a show. So hopefully we can get that going sooner rather than later. But you know,
Me and Diaz have toyed with the idea also of like try to book shows on days off on the Hella Mega tour. It's like, oh, we're in Cleveland for 2 days. Like, let's try to book a show somewhere.
let's just run Warren's drum tracks. You can't make it. Dude, we have access to everything. I got my in-ears. Let's do this. Let's get Spud, our monitor engineer, to do monitors. He'll just do the ears for us at like some bar somewhere on a day off. Put him to work.
That would be rad. Yeah, like on an off day, you guys just start booking. The guys in Fall Out Boy are like, are you
it's
touring
just-
on our tour?
yeah. It's
Yeah,
a
like
sub-tour.
honestly, it'd be like that's something that I've always thought about doing. Like when you have enough off days on a tour, and this tour coming up has plenty of them, where you're just like, man, it would be cool just to have, you know, a few people on tour just throw together some songs and like find some random place in like Omaha to go play at a bar somewhere, and you're just like, yeah, we did our first tour. Like, yeah, we did it. It's like, wait, all these dates are the same as the Hella Mega tour, but like off by one day.
Oh, was it me and Diaz are pretty good friends with the Interrupters also. Actually, a band that kind of started off as roadies too. But I will say,
I love that.
Hey, Kevin Bavona, if you're listening, if somebody happens to Nancy Kerrigan your leg and then just the knives end up taking your spot on that tour, it wasn't me.
They're great. I've had a chance to interview them a couple of times. I love them. Amazing band.
They have a great story too. Gosh, I mean, the fact that they were all kind of roadies too. Me and Kevin knew each other for a long time. Then I don't need to go into their story on this podcast, but I'm so proud of them and what they've done.
And they are killing it. It's amazing. It's amazing. I will say that like I said, I'm from San Diego. My family just moved to Nashville like during this pandemic. And I'm totally bummed that the tour is not coming. I mean, I think Atlanta, you guys are playing Atlanta.
Yeah.
I don't really know. Yeah.
That's the closest to us, but I was super excited because I'm like, we had this thing going in San Diego at the Hard Rock Hotel, and it was right next door to Petco. And I'm like, oh, we can do something cool. And then we move, but you guys get to play Petco Park, and that's going to be pretty awesome.
I'm excited to do baseball stadiums like that. That's not it's usually like the biggest is kind of like arenas or amphitheaters, but then you get on that level, it's like, oh, we're doing baseball stadiums. Like, sweet. The only level up is football stadiums.
Yeah, that's it.
Sure. I'm actually surprised that some of the dates aren't at football stadiums because Fall Out Boy, Green, Weezer, they can all draw, and it's like everybody will come to see. It's like
I think a baseball stadium is big enough. It's funny. I don't have to see it from the crowd, so like I don't really care where it is. But personally, for my own personal taste, an arena is about as big of a venue as I want to see anything in. Like I can't imagine being in like, a soccer stadium like we did in, with GNR, we did in Europe. We were doing like 80,000 people in a giant soccer stadium. And you're like, what are you even seeing? Like you're in like the third tier up all the way in the back. I mean, I guess you're just looking at these giant video screens, but I don't know. It just feels so disconnected. You're so like, you're hearing the music delayed. You're not even hearing it as it's happening. You're hearing the past. You're hearing history. It's not actually happening. What you're hearing is not actually happening as you're seeing it. But like, I mean, I don't know. I just like, for my own personal preference, like an arena is already like too big, but that's as far as I'll,
You want a ticket.
Yeah, totally.
Well, yeah, that's a great point, because Guns N' Roses played the football stadium in San Diego when it
Sure.
was still standing.
Yeah.
And you could just go like hang out on the bridge over by the 15 freeway and you could hear the show if you wanted to.
Totally.
So you're pretty much you're not getting the visual, but you're getting the same experience as the people in the nosebleed section.
I remember one time in high school, the Rolling Stones were playing at the football stadium in Tampa. And my house is probably like 8 miles from that stadium. And I remember going outside and be like, I'll probably be able to hear the Rolling Stones. I could not at all, but I was convinced that I was like, I'm gonna go sit on the patio and listen to the Rolling Stones concert that's 8 miles away.
At that DC pavilion that I worked at, we had a Metallica show one year where we were getting noise complaints 17 miles away.
Damn.
Oh, wow.
Or we just it carries, sound it just depends, what it is. I remember doing something at this is like a South Korean festival, and I don't know, were you there, Ben, when we did South Korea with Fall Out Boy now? And I just remember the light show and like we loaded in overnight. We were headlining, so we loaded in overnight. Our lighting guy was programming the show, Rob, and there was like he was running audio, so it's like super loud and whatever. And I remember being at the hotel and being able to like look out the window and see like the sky like lighting up like every so often from his show, and like hearing like the faint noise, and we were miles away. So I was like, wow, like that's pretty crazy. Like we're definitely causing a disturbance in town right now.
Yeah,
it's like people are like, what the fuck is this?
That's amazing. That's so cool. I mean, I envy you guys being able to tour the world, especially with these huge bands. I mean, that's so cool. And then being able to write music on the side and putting out a rad record. I love the new record. Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's so amazing.
I feel it's like got a little more of a punk rock vibe than the first one, but yeah, it's just it's fun stuff. Like I'm excited for people to. Every band says it. I'm excited for people to hear what we've done. But yeah, I think that we wrote awesome music.
I agree. I think it's a rad record, and hopefully you'll be able to play it once you guys are all around the same area.
Hopefully.
Maybe,
yeah.
Once stuff calms down, like you said, you guys are going to be in high demand here soon enough when when everyone's touring at the same time.
Yeah, totally.
And thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Adam.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
Yeah, I do have one more question for you all. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Advice for aspiring artists. I feel like I'm still aspiring. But I mean, as far as like, if it's from the perspective of songwriting, I had a thought. Now I just lost it. I mean, there's obviously like, just keep doing it. Just, like when I first started, I was like, I don't know if I'm any good at this, but I'm just going to do it. And then it's like, oh, I guess I am. Now, as an aspiring songwriter, you might be awful at it. But just keep doing it and see if you get a positive response. And if you're not getting positive responses, like, go get that job at Chipotle. They're paying more now.
They're in demand.
Yeah.
What about you, Brian?
I mean, it was sort of along the same lines where, I just never, I knew just my personal experience. I knew that I was doing something that I really wanted to do, that I loved, and I didn't give up on it. And I just kept on, you keep at it. And it's always a learning process. There's no one knows the most. So you're always learning something new, whether it's songwriting or being a tech or traveling the world. You don't know everything about it. So like, you just have to, it's just continue learning and like be flexible to growth. That's an important thing when you're doing anything, but especially when you're doing music and that, writing music, it's really important to like not stagnate, just keep letting yourself grow.
I think that's one of the important things on his point that I kind of took is just his career advice in general is I kind of always had like a general goal, but never like, you never know what opportunities are going to pop up. So just kind of be prepared, prepare yourself for opportunities. Like I didn't know if I'd get to play guitar for Linkin Park, but I learned all the songs just in case it happened. And so just always prepare for opportunities that may never come up, but but don't be stuck to just one path. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to make it. Just always diversify your portfolio. Wu-Tang Financial.
Diversify, and always remember, don't be the smartest person in the room. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Exactly.
I love that. That's a good one. That's a good one. And I want to say, Brian, I love your photography work on
Oh,
your
thank you.
Instagram. It's
Thank
killer.
you.
Did you have a chance to like on an off day or a tour day?
That's
are you able
basically
to-
all I ever do on off days. I just grab my cameras, which I bring with me, and I'll usually bring a couple, like a film camera and a digital, and just walk around town. So I'm actually looking forward to doing that again, because it's been a while. Like, I'm running out of things to shoot here in LA.
Yeah,
And I'd like
I
to
can
shoot some bands again. It would be nice. It'll be nice to like shoot the Interrupters and Weezer, it'll be fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, your work is incredible. I just
Thank
wanted
you.
to let you know. So cool. What about you, Warren? Do you have anything, any advice?
Kind of an offshoot of what Diaz said. Just do what you love. If you love playing a specific instrument, keep playing your instrument. If you love writing music, keep writing music. If you love working at Chipotle, work at Chipotle.
I love doing two
Hit that bowl.
spoonfuls.
And,
Hashtag ad.
you're gonna meet, people who are into it. You're gonna meet people who aren't into it. The only thing that matters is if you're into it. And if you got faith in yourself, you got faith in your product, you got faith in your abilities, you got faith in where you can go with it, then the sky's the limit if you decide to take it that way.
Bringing it backward.